Hi, everyone. Judge Andrew Napolitano here for Judging Freedom. Today is Tuesday, June 18, 2024. Ryan Dawson joins us now. Ryan, it's been a long time. Welcome back to the show. Glad that you could join us. You're in the U.S. instead of in Japan, but I won't ask you about your travels, but happy that you're here. Thank you.
You seem to never catch me in Korea.
Right. I want to ask you your views of Prime Minister Netanyahu's visit here and what's happening in Gaza. But before we do, the sort of breaking news of the past 2 or 3 days is Russian President Putin's what I thought was a quite reasonable peace offer panned by the West. What did you think of what President Putin offered? And are you surprised that the West has panned it before the ink was dry?
I'm not surprised at all. I thought the offer was reasonable. They're going to have to cede all that territory anyway. I mean, if possession is 9/10 of the law, right? But I wasn't surprised that the U.S. was going to can this. The U.S. was orchestrating meetings where Russia wasn't even invited. And NATO seems to be enjoying the profiteering of this war. They're not really concerned about the fate of Ukraine or the future of Ukraine. It's more or less how many dollars go to Lockheed Martin and Raytheon and the people, the giant lobbies around D.C.
You have put your finger on the military-industrial complex and the extraordinary benefits it enjoys as a result of these votes which members of Congress come to the floor of the Congress to say, this is for Ukraine, this is for Ukraine, this is to restrain Putin's aggression. All the while they know exactly where this money is going to end up. And yet the very succinct and clear answer you just gave, you don't hear on mainstream media anymore.
Never. And that's part of the problem, is the war propaganda. To expand on something Representative Thomas Massey said, he said everybody in Congress has an AIPAC guy. Well, a lot of people in the media also have an AIPAC guy. And so when it comes to like Gaza or the upcoming war in Lebanon, in my opinion, this is what AIPAC wants. They do things for Israel. But the MIC, I guess coined by Eisenhower's farewell address, is very much alive and well. Nobody else is benefiting from this war other than profiteers. They've lost all this territory. Ukraine's lost almost 500,000 men. It's utterly disgusting. This whole thing could have been avoided. And there were people talking about it when the coup happened in 2014. I had Pepe Escobar on me. People were yelling to their blue in the face, but most of the mass media didn't pick up on it until there was a hot war in 2022. By then, it was too late.
I doubt that you and I have been approached by anybody from AIPAC wanting to be our handlers. It would obviously be rejected and fruitless, and it never occurred to me that is probably the case. I often wonder if it was the case. I was at Fox for 24 years, as you know. I often wonder if it was the case for my colleagues at Fox. I thought what Congressman Massey, who candidly is a longtime friend and collaborator of mine, I wonder how long this has been going on and why we didn't know it. I mean, look at it.
I talked to Scott Ritter, who you know well, this show knows well, and he used to be very loved in Israel because he was the weapons inspector getting rid of Iraq's most powerful weapons, which they did have prior to 1998. And he would do interviews on all these shows, and the cameraman, the producers were like, hey, we love you, Scott. Here's my card. Here's my other card, AIPAC. That's what he told me. And it's not just AIPAC. AIPAC is the brand that people know, they're most aware of. But AIPAC has all these affiliate groups. Grant F. Smith wrote a book about it called Big Israel. So you get groups like UDP, United Democracy Project, that are actually raking in the millions, probably 10 times more than AIPAC. And they're funding all the same outfits, Congress, media, and so on. And so you have to nail down all these affiliate groups. It's sort of like an umbrella corporation, similar to, say, the National Endowment for Democracy was in Ukraine, to spill money to all these other so-called NGOs. That's what AIPAC serves as. It is the lobby. It is for Zionist interests, and Zionism is built on war and apartheid. It's an unsustainable ideology where they just annex territory and continue to steal land and shoot kids and bomb hospitals. The things they're doing now in Gaza, they've done before. They've done the same things in the West Bank. And you'd think anybody with an ounce of morality would be opposed to this, of course. But the people who are moral usually don't get into these kind of positions.
Correct.
So well financed on the side.
Correct. You talk about cash. Look at Mrs. Adelson offering $100 million to Donald Trump if he promises her, assuming he gets elected, promises her that the United States will assist in the acquisition of the West Bank and more for Israel. And this negotiation between them is public. I mean, this is just reprehensible.
That's the other thing. It's not a secret
society. In fairness to Trump, hold on. In fairness to Trump,
sure.
It's not money in his pocket. It's money to his campaign. Go ahead.
That's true. And some people say, hey, if you want to give me money, give me money. It doesn't mean they're going to follow through on their promises. But he took money from Sheldon Adelson when he was still alive.
Right.
And according to Jim Loeb, that was basically like why Trump had to or decided to bring in John Bolton was at the request of Adelson. Right. They obviously didn't get along. He ended up firing him eventually. But John Bolton, that's who pretty much single-handedly destroyed the Hanoi meeting to try to get peace with North Korea. He came in there and saying, we're going to give you the Libya treatment. And what happened to Libya?
Right.
They got rid of their weapons and then they got invaded.
John Bolton is Lindsey Graham with a brain, but their attitudes and their desire that they never met a war they didn't want somebody else to fight. It's the same. What will happen when Netanyahu comes here? We know that the Congress will give him dozens and dozens of standing ovations and accolades. Will there be protests? Will the students, the courageous students who peacefully protested in April and May until the police arrived and caused violence? I'm describing Colombia. Until the Zionists arrived and caused violence. I'm describing UCLA. Will these courageous students make known their revulsion at a war criminal standing in the well of the House of Representatives?
Well, he got 55 standing ovations last time he came to Congress during the Obama regime. Obama wasn't even there. 55 standing ovations. So maybe he'll try and top that. Right. The difference between then and now is social media. Zionists no longer have a monopoly over media because of TikTok and Twitter mostly. That's 2-degree Telegram. And so there will be protests. And I should point out with Colombia, as I'm sure you're well aware, it was in the Washington Post, there was a WhatsApp group with hundreds of participants, many of them billionaires Zionists colluded to essentially bribe the mayor to crack down on students who were protesting genocide. And if you compare that list to UDP and AIPAC and their affiliates and their donors, the Venn diagram just looks like a circle.
You know, one of my favorite stories, it's a repellent story, is the professor of security studies at Columbia University, who was also a deputy police commissioner and was basically a spy for the police. Now, she is no longer at Columbia, and I can only imagine what her students thought because she was undercover when she showed up at a press conference next to the mayor that you're talking about. And by the way, the mayor himself is a former NYPD captain. He personally led the raid at Columbia University, which is what produced all the violence. I mean, I don't even remember that happening. This is before you were born and I was a teenager. I don't even remember that happening. The last time this happened at Columbia University in the mid-'60s when the demonstrations were against the Vietnam War, the mayor himself leading the cops' charge to rough up peaceful protesters whose only crime was they wanted a place to sleep and they pitched some pup tents. But you think there will be noticeable, I mean, by noticeable, I mean so mainstream media can't avoid it, protests to Netanyahu when he does come?
I'm not sure the mainstream media can't avoid it. If you remember, prior to the second Iraq war, there were 500,000 protesters in places like New York City and DC, and they did ignore it. They just acted like it wasn't there. It was on C-SPAN, and that was about it.
Well, there's a lot more than C-SPAN now, thanks to what all of us do. I wonder if any members of Congress will not attend. I haven't asked Congressman Massey yet. I know the only person who says he's not going to attend, I'm laughing because he's such a character, is Bernie Sanders, who, of course, is Jewish and referred to Netanyahu as a war criminal.
Well, good for him, because he certainly is a war criminal. It's really that entire cabinet. If you look at it, even the ones that resigning in protest, they all supported this genocide in Gaza. Yeah. And it's not like this started last year. While he's been prime minister more than one time, they've always butchered people in Gaza. This is the longest sustained campaign, and this is a little different because more people are seeing it this time. But the behavior is not really different.
Agreed. I mean, Benny Gantz may have an easier personality than Benjamin Netanyahu, but when he was the head of the IDF, his behavior was as repellent, even more so in some instances, as what's going on now. It's like the Republicans and the Democrats. It's on war and on surveillance and on redistribution of wealth. It's Tweedledee and Tweedledum. How universal is this disgust with the slaughter in Gaza? Our colleague, Alistair Crook, refers to the universality of the opposition as the resistance. And he says there's even a control room, and he says at some point it's just going to bubble over and we'll see it. What do you think about this?
I think if people paying attention can see the signs already. We had several European states recognize Palestinian statehood with Norway, Ireland, Spain, and Slovenia. We might see Malta next. There are Turkey cut off oil, and actually they cut off all trade with Israel. So did Bolivia. You were seeing states stand up to the apartheid regime, and you're seeing protests in the states that aren't standing up to Israel. You're even in the United States, Canada, Britain, where they know billions of dollars flow out to Israel from DC, and it's because of AIPAC and AIPAC-esque groups that are in foreign countries. But people see it this time, and they're not just, it's not just abstractions. They're actually cutting trade. They're issuing boycotts.
Well, I didn't know that you just educated me. I didn't know that Turkey cut off all trade. That's quite significant if Turkey's cut off all trade with Israel.
Well, they started with construction, concrete, steel, a number of things, for raw goods, and then they included gas and oil last. So that had been going on already.
Well, that is significant. I'm trying to remember the strong words articulated by President Erdogan about a year ago, but they were just words. I mean, Turkey has a very sophisticated military. They could neutralize the IDF if they wanted to, but that doesn't seem to be in the cards unless, and this is where Alistair's prediction comes in, the Arab street gets to the point where enough is enough, and their leadership is forced to do something. Jordan, Turkey, Egypt.
It'll hit the Shia crescent first. I mean, you already see resistance from Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, Iran. And so it could start to spill in. And Turkey could take the Sunni leadership here with that. Egypt and Jordan, Israel has so much leverage over Jordan with water rights, and Egypt is at the behest of the U.S. and IMF. They can't really make any moves. But when you're talking about the street, as you said, the Arab street or the Turkish street, then Yeah, we've seen that before. That started in Tunisia last time. They called it the Arab Spring, although it wasn't just Arabs and it wasn't only in the spring, but that has happened. And they, by and large, are already over it. They want an end to genocide. They don't want trade. They don't want normalization. A lot of the Abrams Accords would be reversed in these places Trump worked so hard to get them in place with. That's come undone, and it's come undone because of Israel's behavior. They're so psychotic in what they're doing in Gaza. And it appears that Netanyahu has timed this. Into June, he comes to the U.S., to his AIPAC minions, and they're planning to hit Hezbollah this summer because the Israeli troops are putting on their own Instagrams and things about troop rotations and how they're going back in, and some of them they openly talk. They don't hide it very well. The plan is to go to war with Lebanon, and I'm really torn there. I don't want a war, and then the other side of me says, "Do it because you'll lose."
Yeah,
and I just don't see another solution other than them losing a war.
Here's Amos Hochstein, born in Israel, dual citizen. Israel and the U.S. fought for the IDF. He's now the chief American diplomat trying to negotiate between Hezbollah and the Israelis. Here he is just a few hours ago, just earlier today, cut number 12, Chris.
The conflict along the blue line between Israel and Hezbollah has gone on for long enough. Innocent people are dying. Property is damaged, families are shattered, and the Lebanese economy continues to decline. The country is suffering for no good reason. It's in everyone's interest to resolve it quickly and diplomatically. That is both achievable and it is urgent.
How can he possibly have any credibility given his dual citizenship and personal political and military background?
Because they don't tell you his background. That's you said his background. They just, oh, look, these are the only kind of reports they allow. They don't allow dissent. And that's the problem. We're walking right into another war. It's going to cost billions of dollars. And you could all know as Israel starts to lose a war with Hezbollah, that America will get its arm twisted to intervene. More money, more weapons. It'll come down to Americans. Send your ships, threaten Lebanon. And the other thing Israel will do is it's the same as Gaza. The only thing they're ever good at is butchering civilians.
Well, if this war heats up, Iran is not going to let Hezbollah lose. Russia is not going to let anybody beat up on Iran. So everybody thought World War III would start in Ukraine. Maybe it's going to start where we're talking about now.
Well, Syria either. And because Israel has routinely hit Syria and they want the Golan Heights returned, and they don't have the economy for a protracted war. Neither does Lebanon. But if they're attacked, there's no other choice. And they have hardened, seasoned veterans from fighting ISIL. Hezbollah is dug in, and they have similar equipment to Iran, but the difference is the distance. Iron Dome, Arrow, and David Sling cannot intercept ballistic missiles from that short range and low altitude.
Correct.
They're not even 10%. It's very different to fire across Iraq and Jordan over a very small window where you know it's incoming versus anywhere across the border between Lebanon and Israel. There's not enough time for a response. They can hit anything they want. They've even demonstrated that they took out Iron Dome platforms. So they hit the defense system, a missile defense system with a missile.
Correct.
And you know what? Russia did the same thing in Ukraine. When the first Patriot 3 was open, they tagged it to say, we can hit anything we want, any building we want. Because if we can hit the Patriot system, obviously we can hit anything else.
What does Israel fear? It certainly doesn't fear the loss of American support, does it? Doesn't fear the college students, even though its donor class did the best it could with college presidents to silence them. What does Israel fear?
They fear people leaving Israel. See, the thing is, if the war is bad enough, even if in the beginning, a lot of northern Israel will have to collapse into the center, and a lot of them will leave the country and not return, and they will lose their Jewish diaspora. This is in their own mind, not my words. So they won't have that demographic majority that they feel inclined that they have to have ideologically as a racist apartheid state. And so as the war goes, if they don't win completely, they're afraid. Hezbollah can take out Haifa. They can take out bases. They can't. These aren't rockets from Hamas. These are proper missiles. And so a swath of the population will leave. Tourism will go to zero. They can continue to milk the U.S. for more money, but it's very hard to replace the population if they leave.
What is the status of the Israeli economy? There obviously are no Palestinians there to do menial jobs anymore. There are a lot of professionals that are now in the military instead of doing their works, whether they're dentists, teachers, lawyers, small business people. How does their economy stand right now after 8 months of this?
Well, they're importing Southeast Asians to replace the Palestinians for the cheap labor for everything from landscaping to construction. They're bringing in people from Thailand, and that had been going on as well, but they're getting more for that. As far as professionals being stuck in service, that is more of an issue. Now, the way it is, they usually use the Bedouin. There's a pecking order in Israel. So the Bedouin will be sent in right at Hamas to do fighting. The sort of white-collar sons in the reserves, they're the ones that just loot houses the Air Force already destroyed and post pictures of things I don't even want to describe on the internet of what they're doing, going through the private possessions of Palestinians. They're not there, but with a war with Hezbollah, there is no, there will not be a safe sector to hide in the military. That's a proper war. They lost the last time they fought them. And of course, Hezbollah has support. And I think the world would cheer them on. Everyone's sick of Israel. And the sympathy, obviously, I don't want somebody to bomb Haifa or something, but I could stomach it because it would end it. I'm so sick of seeing this for 75 years of the abuse. And it's all enabled by the United States. The U.S. could end all of this just like that.
With a phone call.
One phone call, we're not giving you any aid. And they just won't do it. The AIPAC is so ingrained into politics. This like blood-sucking parasite. They can't remove it without killing the host. It's in that deep. It's that donor class. At these universities too, like we saw the other side of that, the blackmail. With Jeffrey Epstein, forced Bill Gates to donate to MIT, for example, with Joe Ida. And that's another story that just the entire public was so interested in, and it disappeared. And it disappeared because the trail went back to the people you're not allowed to criticize.
Right.
Israel.
Ryan, it's a delight to speak with you. You're not only smart and articulate, you have great personal courage, and I admire it deeply, and I hope you'll come back and join us again.
Anytime. I love your show. It's the best thing on YouTube.
Oh, thank you. Next time you have lunch with Larry Johnson, maybe I can join you.
We just had dinner last night. Yeah, that would be excellent. Okay. If I go up to Jersey, we'll do that.
You got it, my man. All the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you.